A Sunday afternoon. Having a tough time, had a tough time pressing record or go live on this one. It's almost like the message is so powerful. Like, how could I do it justice in this way? I'll give it a shot because it was powerful. On Friday morning, as I was at this event in Denver, I went for my morning walk um, to the stadium and back. That's Coors Field because we were going to a game that night, which was a great game to watch live, by the way. Uh, we were going to a game and it was 15 minutes away from the hotel, so I figured I would use that as my morning walk. And for some reason, the scene from Office Space came to mind, the therapy scene, where Peter suggests that if you, whenever you see him, you are seeing him on the worst day of his life, which means every day is progressively worse and worse and worse. And it came to mind because I had the thought that every day is the best day of my life right now. Just feeling really good at what the universe is telling me and the projects that I'm working on, the people I'm interacting with. A large part of that is the content creation side of things, which Let's Build Media and all that has happened there since I started doing that on March 18th. I got some good rest yesterday after a tiring week and got a morning walk in today and was able to finish Brave Together. And the last chapter was just super powerful and inspiring, empowering, confirmed that I'm doing feels like I'm doing the right thing, with trying to solve for these knowledge gaps and skills gaps. Um, Definitely in the HubSpot ecosystem. But as I dive back into my old stomping grounds of material science and reference materials, that's where I was this week. Same problems there. Uh, and I think it's the same answers. We got to figure out how to share knowledge at scale. Um, and if we try to do it alone, we're never going to get there. We're never going to get there. Uh, so I'll share some results today to kind of, firm up what I'm seeing and uh, what I'm saying here. Um, but just wanted to give a shout out to Ian Classen and Chris Stever. This book is amazing. I think co-creation and the creator mindset and content is going to have to become a centerpiece of most business models, especially new businesses. Like if you want to break through, um, but finding a way to bring it into traditional spaces, to traditional models, because the way that we've always learned previously, um, it's just not there anymore, and we're not going back to it. So maybe I can keep track of my messages today. Uh, and um, see what I got. Nick joining today. Um, Good to see you, man. Had a great episode with Nico uh, last a couple Fridays ago. We'll be doing another episode on AI and HubSpot and Hub Helper Harry later this week. But yeah, this has been a powerful journey, and this book kind of sewed it up. Like if I needed any kind of reassurance that I'm on the right path or enabling the right things for the people around me to help them understand and grow and over that cycle. That's how we get out of these huge knowledge and skills gap. Um, this huge knowledge and skills gap, I should say. These guys came together, and I won't go into too much detail, hoping to get them on an episode soon. But got quite the pedigree of Disney and Apple, to name a couple. But just high recommend, like either you're invested in content or you're not. We've got to figure this out. And the way they bring it to culture is huge, because that's what gets in the way of co-creation, ultimately, of creation, of knowledge sharing. It's almost always, a knowledge transfer. There's a fear, right? And I was exchanging some messages with Ian today, and he asked a question about the metal space and why they wouldn't want to, what was the vibe as far as, he asked these questions like, is it about risk mitigation, right? Is it fear, or what causes the risk mitigation focus? Is it trade secrets? Is it just fear? Is it they don't know how to share, right? And it's really all the above. And like if we think about how the HubSpot ecosystem has grown up, and I'm so thankful I remember this, because this is what I'm tackling, right? Now, when we were growing up in the HubSpot ecosystem, we would come here and let's say how to create a contact record in HubSpot. And we would get, generally, depending on how HubSpot specific we were, we would get sent to one of three places, I think. And that is the knowledge base, which we see here, the community, which we see here, or, let's say the blog. Usually the blog would show up if it's more of a theoretical ask related to marketing automation. But those would be the three places that we would get sent to and learn from, right? Probably throw the academy in there, although now that I'm thinking about it, maybe the academy doesn't show up via Google, but that was another place that we would go and learn, or at least be onboarded with the help of, right? Well, since 2020, as the game has changed for HubSpot, and they've turned on the we're going to compete with Salesforce switch. A huge gap has been created because at the same time they've reduced resources and enablement, and in supporting all the resources for all the other hubs, and what does customer platform mean, and it was really starting to gnaw at me as I joined the ecosystem officially last year as more than just a user, but also a partner. And I've talked about this at length. I won't go into details here, but this transition between selling and servicing a point solution versus a customer platform is causing a lot of challenges because the product itself represents a customer platform, but people still know it as a point solution. And as you run into the customer platform functionality over and over, it's very hard to get the help that you need to understand what you should and should not be doing, inside of HubSpot. How do you make it work for your company, right? There's not a lot of people incentivized to help you with that. So, being inspired by Kyle Jepsen, posting videos every day, trying to keep up with product updates, where the math just doesn't work. Even if he does not miss a day. That's 365 videos. And last year there was 800 updates. So I said, hey, let me try to see what I can add. And always from a strategic perspective. Most of the time I was going on by myself, but it opened the door, created this channel where it made sense for me to invite others, right? With the long-term goal of helping coaches, like trying to create and generate and distribute knowledge at scale from the experts who can do it, right? We know where the experts are. We know there's a bunch of people that need help from those experts, but it's so hard for them to find them. It's so hard for HubSpotters to understand where they are. So it's this huge problem that this was the whole reason for going this route. And, as I finished this book, and just the whole book, like, just resonated so hard in terms of like what I've been doing with Let's Build Media, right? So first of all, we know, like, it's so commonplace that somebody talks about being overwhelmed. And it's this interesting spot of not being able to keep up with the platform, but knowing there is an overwhelming amount of resources available, which tells me the resources are redundant, or they're not up to date, or they're not in a format that is consumable based on the way that people consume media. And when HubSpot like focuses on product, reduces enablement resources, starting to see some picking up of like more hugs and more focus on the community. But even the community boards, you get there and the chances are you're not seeing information that is like 100% helpful, or if it's from a year or older, like it's very likely that the thing has changed since then, right? And this constant evolution of HubSpot also makes it harder for partners and the rest of the ecosystem, including the Academy, to make on-demand content. Because you might put all this effort into planning a video, a how-to, and you publish it, and the next week they change the view on you, or they change any of the screens involved in your video. And it's just a recipe for more knowledge siloing, because the amount of time it takes to create content in an on-demand way that has an academy style is a lot of effort. And when that effort is not like served because it goes out of date so quickly, it's just an impossible task to keep up. So my whole thought is like, let's just start having the conversations live. It reduces the barrier to entry, both from a preparation standpoint and it's okay if it's out of date. We're just having a conversation about what's possible. These are not tutorials. These are not academy, style, highly produced, how-tos, right? Nobody's getting certified on this stuff, but the conversations we are having help generate new perspectives, expose people to new perspectives, new ways of thinking about things, strategic ways of thinking about things. Most of the content available to the ecosystem right now is somewhere between black and white product content, 1, 2, 3, 4 done tutorials and pitches, right? And that's not what the ecosystem needs right now. That's not the kind of stuff that fills the knowledge gap when you're trying to reach people who already have HubSpot, people who don't need to buy more HubSpot. They can probably build stuff themselves, but they're overwhelmed with options as far as how to build it out, how to do the next thing, how to take the next step, how to maximize the new update, how to move on to it when the old update is still active and live. All these things show up. So it results in just an overwhelm of new things that all of these thoughts get in the way of learning about them, using them. I mean, how often does it happen that even on one of these shows, something is new? It happened uh, just on Friday, right? Which is made me so, not the surprise part, but the fact that we could have, coaches like Danielle and Brian kind of take over my channel while I was at, an event that I couldn't be at. They stepped up to say, hey, the content, the knowledge sharing can't can't stop. We don't want it to stop. So they stepped up and showed up, right? To make sure that keeps going. And that's when we're relying on somebody like Kyle for everything. He took 2 weeks off, in July, which he damn well deserved. But then the videos stop, right? And that knowledge sharing stops. We got to find a way to get everybody together and push this. Like, it's the only way, especially if you're one of the ones complaining, like I was, and I wasn't doing anything about it. But if you're concerned or it's causing you headaches about how people aren't getting it, or you're having to explain the same things over and over, and your videos are becoming overwhelming, and how do you get them out? You've got to lower the bar. And it's really the difference between like scripted, on-demand content and conversations, just having conversations. And what I highlighted here is that I get these initial coaches involved, trying to make it so it's not a huge lift, right? I understand the time and the effort, and and the interesting feedback again is the perception that because it's video, right? Because it's video content and we're doing it in public, it's got to be pre-planned. Like, I start thinking about webinars, or I start thinking about on-demand tutorials and all the work that goes in. This is not that, right? But it works because you're sharing your expertise, the preparation you've done for 5 or 10, 20 years, actually helping people, learning it yourself. That's the preparation. And all we're doing is having conversation based on that, based on your expertise, right? So all right, I'm gonna have to close that every time. That's annoying. The one problem with sharing your LinkedIn screen is all the messages that pop up live. So we're gonna do something else here, because I'm also learning, we're using a tool like LinkedIn Live in a way that was not intended. The amount of content that I'm putting out there is much in like a TV station. And what's interesting is whether I schedule an event or we just go live, which is what they did on Friday. The accessibility of both the comments, like I can't open these comments, and one of these is my comment from earlier today. So if you're out there, you know how to access these comments, right? Maybe it's accessible on mobile. I felt like it might have been, but it's not coming up here. And how do we see the analytics, right? It's different from when I schedule everything. I get this format here. I can come to this network manager events. I can see all my past events, right? Both the ones I've done and the ones I've signed up to attend, right? So I've done a lot of events. And before we click on, some of these individual events, just to see how well we're doing, I guess well is so relative here, but I'm going to try and open it over here. I'm going to go to post impressions, and I'll bring that over. Right. And so this one was a live event. I just went live. I did not plan this. And it counts it as a post, right? But here is like the groups of analytics for past 7 days, previous week, past 90 days, right? And if I click on that, it shows me the content performance. And we have some discovery here, unique views, right? And what's interesting is that like just so many people worry about the algorithm way too much. It highlights like if I were inside of a company, I would not have been able to do what I've done, right? Like my goal of just helping one person at a time, like if this provides value to one person each episode, then that's a win. And that's a win for me. Um, and I'm grateful to be in a position where I can take the time to do this and prioritize it. But I can tell you it's leading to some big things, right? Even the ability to invite some best-selling authors and have a conversation with them like would not have happened. Uh, and there's lots of intangible, immeasurable things like that uh, that have happened because of this, which is why I just steer clear of, worrying about the numbers, right? Because this is an example of these two best performing posts from the week. Like we're not these top three, like none of them were actual shows, right? These were just like, I feel like posting right now. This is me. Like, I don't appreciate this email that got sent, right? I literally just posted what was in my head at the moment I saw this email. The one thing I did change is I was going to copy paste the text. Instead, I created an image that probably helped it do a little bit better. But, big impressions. Like, and if this was the goal, I would try to start doing more stuff like this, right? But the value here is like basically just entertainment. Um, this one was, trying to pat myself on the back a little bit. Got some other pats on the back, in the process, which always feels good, right? But it's like when we talk about like 80, 20, 90, 10, education versus promotional content, this is kind of what I'm talking about where, I'm like 95-5 maybe with promotion or like because of all the other content generated that is intended to be educational value, right? These couple posts, I feel okay with, right? And that allows me to make these posts in a way that other people will be supportive. But if I show more, now we see. And, the best performing one from the week, I actually, screwed this up a little bit. Like, there's a setting to either go live um, or go or schedule, right? And I had scheduled an event with Lucy, and I forgot to uncheck the go live. So this was either streaming, I think it was streaming twice, right? And the comments came in on the other post. So this number is probably higher because I deleted that post and suggested to focus on this one, and it's still outranked. So the process of involving other people and what does their audience look like, and their engagement and their exposure, their reach, like, is all a big part of this. And the content networking effect here, like, this is why, like, content is um it's just the way, like, the fact that we have to defend this sometimes anymore is just like, people want so badly for it to go back to the way it was, right? And we've got, some lower numbers here, right? But at the same time, this one with George, generated a specific inbound request. That was good, right? And again, one trying to add value to one person, right? And over time, this has all built. I mean, I've definitely had some shows in the past where it was less than 100, right? If we look at, and that's like, I'm not even trying to engage live at this point. Riverside does not do that part great. They only half worked in StreamYard, right? So maybe we find, as we scale, another way to do these so that we can have engagement. It kills me right now, but I'm not going to slow down, right? Because the recorded events, just accepting the fact that you can't engage very much right now. I just got to accept that. If I look at past 90 days, right, kind of a trend going up. Again, slowly but surely. If we look at audience, right, and it was interesting that email, it's all relative, right? The email said if I wanted to kill it, or LinkedIn, like, maybe they were just looking for these. I don't know. They probably didn't do an audit, let's be honest. But either way, there's lots of ways to say this isn't good enough, right? And if it's shut down, then knowledge sharing just gets shut off as well, which that's the goal, right? So it's not hundreds of thousands, it's not millions, but the qualitative feedback is telling me this is working. Just gonna check out audience here. Right, gone, doubled followers in the last year, which is one of the other posts I made. Very interesting, because I think I had like 2,300 contact connections before all this. I'm only at, I think I've added like 500 connections, but it's clear that not all those connections were followers if I'm plus 1,500, right? So it's a very interesting situation. And, LinkedIn is, this piece of LinkedIn, the video part of LinkedIn, they're clearly doing a lot of work. If I were to, put too much emphasis on there, right? So let's look at, since she was best performing, let's look at Lucy's show. It's just so easy to get distracted when you just focus on the analytics, right? So you've got 16 engagements there, one repost, got some analytics, 2 attendees live. Again, this is where we had, the two streams going at the same time, and people were commenting on the other one. So that was a hiccup on my part. But we've got, these impressions, unique views, 252 video views, 178 minutes viewed, right? This number is the number that goes up over time. And then, we want to transfer and start to build it over on YouTube. right? We know it's not the best place to have historical content. And again, we're bringing it here for the accessibility. Like discoverability and organic is going to come way later when it comes. But trying to just be where people are at the beginning with the content that we think is valuable, right, is the goal. Um, Applying metrics and just putting them through the analytics ringer is going to get in the way right now. So for me, since I've had qualitative feedback that says it's working in terms of people telling me how great the content is, uh, even though there's no way to tell they've engaged directly, right? I get these connection requests, and I always say, how did you, what brings you my way today? Over 50% of the time, it's a specific piece of content. And when they're inside the ecosystem and they tell me it's helpful and it's helping them learn, especially when they're inside of HubSpot themselves, uh, that's the kind of stuff that's going to scale the knowledge gap closed, right? So we got to get people inside the ecosystem more educated on customer platform. And when I see and hear about new people like getting information from the content, that's it's just a small part, small step to fill the gap, but it's a new kind of content. And the more people that start doing it, that's the scale we're looking for. And what I learned this week is that this problem exists probably in every industry that has suffered from a lack of digital transformation, which since I started in the industry in SaaS in the place that's supposed to help with digital transformation, you can imagine it's probably every other industry. Um, and so the meeting I was at and why this is applicable and this is the next step for me as far as expanding this vision of just getting knowledge, sharing knowledge, trying to get other people involved in sharing knowledge. Repurposing a way that they already share knowledge, right? They just don't know how. And again, like full empathy to why you might not want to be able, you're not comfortable going live on LinkedIn. I get it, right? It's new, it's untested. You don't know how much value you're going to get. It's hard to track. You're putting yourself out there like in public, but it's got to happen. And the meeting I was just at, Rocky Mountain Cooperative Program, uh, big shout out to Dan Geist and Cheryl Lucas. It was a great event. There were some great talks there. I got to talk about this training stuff, this content creation, this knowledge gap while I was there. That was my participation on Friday because I've experienced this in the space since 2008. And to say they haven't come very far is hard to be an understatement, but they haven't come very far. And when I was talking to Ian about it earlier, I talked about the hesitation and where it was coming from, and he shared this article from Fast Company about how they overcame like the secrecy culture at Apple to uh, to build a better culture and build awesome products. Um, so it's a great list, a great read, and it's definitely reminding me of what was in the book. Uh, but this secrecy, this unwillingness to share. Meanwhile, we're all in this room and we're sharing openly, right? And I've seen this in multiple spaces at this point. And this is where even in the digital space, like if it's just at the webinar, if you got to put it behind a gate, if it's all about the registrations for the leads, you've got to find a way to bring the knowledge outside of the rooms instead of just begging people to come into the room because they're not. And this is happening, uh, in this space, but we've got all these people sharing knowledge at the event. Uh, you know, it's not recorded for all the reasons we discussed earlier. And that culture is strong because I very badly wanted mine to be recorded. I didn't have slides. I just do it just like this, where it's like, hey, these are the things I want to talk about. They're all website pages in some way, shape, or form. I'm just going to show that. But just the idea of recording it, and Dan said, like, hey, I would have said yes, but it reminded me that there's two parts to why we can't record. It's one, the person doing the event has to say yes or no. But then two, if we're recording now, who's afraid to talk now? What kind of feedback are we not going to get? Because we're used to not recording, and where's it going to go? Who's going to see it? I'm not going to share knowledge now because we're recording, right? And this culture, like the co-creation, the fact that Brave Together was about co-creation in order to drive healthy culture in that kind of cycle, the flywheel a little bit. It's necessary. It's the only way that we're going to, bring share knowledge, share wisdom from a perspective of not pitching or not needing something in return, being empathetic to the people we're trying to help grow, right? Because usually, and see it over and over, right? Uh, I sat in a room, BatCon in 2022, or 2023 actually, last year, right? And they were asking the same things. How do we get more people to this event? How do we get more people in the room? And I found this page today, and it looks like the right idea, but we got these videos from 3 or 4 years ago. I think there's one below that's maybe a year old. But as you watch them, if you're to stumble upon these, they're all very pre-produced, very scripted. It's just hard to create authentic content in that way. But when they say, how do we get more people involved? And we're talking about field techs that don't have all the knowledge they need to do the jobs, and we have employment shortages all over the place. They're not coming to the conference. Then all the people around them that also need to know, right? A big problem in the material space is assessors and audits and them not having the knowledge they need, and all the pressure being on the user to pass the audits and then teach everybody around them why it's okay to do the things that they're doing because they clearly don't have knowledge. It's just not setting anybody up for success, these knowledge silos that we're creating. So we create these events. Here's EXA, one from last year, or it's this year's, but so much work. This is what kind of blows my mind. Like, subject matter expertise is not the limiting factor here. It's how we don't know how to share the knowledge in the ways that we're not used to on social, right? So much effort goes into these talks, so much, and then they're one and done. Like, how do we take that effort? It's Denver X-ray Conference. The same thing happens. How do we repurpose this? How do we take that effort and make it more consumable outside of these events? We've got to find a way to ungate this knowledge if we're also going to complain about the lack of training in the industry, the talent shortage. And things like universities are not going to come back like they were. Companies aren't investing in analytical science in this case, right? That was the investment. That investment was driving the need for it at universities, and all that's gone. So if we can't figure out consumable content via social and YouTube, that gap is never going to close. And consumable content is not what you're used to. It's not webinars. It's not like making it inaccessible at these events, right? Looks like there's, ICDD that does Denver X-ray. There's some hope there, right? But this is where when it's all on you, when it's all on one person, it is a huge lift, right? We've got to get together and start collaborating. And that's what, Let's Build Media is all about. It's what most of the projects I'm working on are all about. So going to be starting up a new series. I think it's going to be called Elements of Interest, which relates specifically to reference materials and the industry I'm from. I'm going to try to take this education there. So I'll apologize to any of my HubSpot brethren. Hopefully I can find a way to not pepper you with that content, make it clear which one it's going to be when. But I just can't resist. Like, if for me, this is the best form of marketing and customer experience. It's the best way to give value, for free, to create better conversations and better relationships. So I got to find a way to do it and involve others in the process. So, super excited. I'm getting all the right signals and getting more and more people interested and involved. And I think we can do this. Again, there's no shortage of subject matter expertise. We've just got to do a little bit of coordinating. Stop creating so much content in silos by ourselves and figure out a way to come together. So if you're all about creating content or you're creating resources for your clients, even for the sales process, and you think it might benefit somebody else, maybe we can have you on the show. Maybe you can start a show of your own. This is the path towards thought leadership. Does an unbelievable number on building personal brands because you're helping people, you're giving value. The value comes back every time. So as you think about how you might want to participate, think about all the resources you've been creating, all the resources you've been wanting to create and haven't because you haven't had a place to put it where you think it would be valuable. Find the opportunity and let's grow together. Have a great week, everybody.